it and move on. I believe that it would be a fallacy, it would be a serious mistake on our part to ignore this particular problem, because I believe that the very foundations of Pakistan are based on India hatred and specifically Hindu hatred, which effectively means that whoever subscribes to the idea of Pakistan, regardless of which country or which geography they live in, effectively has the germ or seed of Hindu hatred as part of his mindset. And that is not good for the harmony of this country under any circumstances. Since as on date, we are told that Hindus are about 80% of the Indian population. I don't know if that figure is still true, and I'd wait for the next census to tell me if we have come down to 75% or 76%. Be that as it may, even if we are 75%, I do believe that it is important to understand the foundations of this concept called Pakistan, this idea of Pakistan, and what is it built on, because it has a serious relevance and implication for us as a country, right?
And here's what Akbaruddin Owaisi had said way back in 2012 that he's invoked once again without remorse in that speech yesterday. Take a look.
अरे हिंदुस्तान हम 25 कौड़ है ना, तुम 100 कौड़ है ना, ठीक है, तुम तो हमारे से इतने ज्यादा है। 15 मिनट के लिए पुलिस को हटा लो, बता लेंगे किसमें हिम्मत है, कौन ताकतवर है। 15 मिनट हटा लो।
Now come back with a fresh communally charged remark addressing a public rally in Karimnagar district of Telangana.
याद रखो, दुनिया उसी को डराती है जो डरता है, दुनिया उसी से डरती है जो डराना जानता है। क्या है अकबरुद्दीन ओवैसी से नफरत क्यों है? 15 मिनट ऐसा ज़र्ब है जो अभी भी नहीं भर सका। अरे ये हिम्मत है, अरे खुदा।
At some stage, we must accept the reality that the mindset that subscribes to the concept of Pakistan will never ever reconcile itself to the idea of living in a Hindu majority India, because it believes that it has ruled over this particular subcontinent for close to 800 years, whether or not that is the truth, but at least for a period of 800 years in the aggregate, if not for a continuous period of 800 years. And therefore, they would always proceed on the assumption that those people who have been treated as slaves and as second-grade citizens cannot be allowed to rule them again. And that seems to be the point of view that Dr. Ambedkar captures with a lot of clarity. How is this relevant to modern India? Perhaps you must connect these points that Dr. Ambedkar presents with the statements frequently made by Asaduddin Owaisi as well as Akbaruddin Owaisi. Not the statements that they make before the English media, not the statements that they make before NDTV or national media, but the statements that they make in front of their home audience, either in Aurangabad or Adilabad or Charminar or any other place where they call these meetings as jalsas. And there you get to see the sense in which they say that this country belongs to us. They don't say that they belong to this country, they say that this country belongs to them. That has a very different connotation altogether. And if anybody were to read up on the history of the All India Majlis-e-Ittihad al-Muslimin as a party and its antecedents, what is it that they mean becomes very, very clear. I don't think it's a statement of patriotism, it's a statement of ownership of a very different nature altogether.
AIMIM MLA Akbaruddin Owaisi has said Muslims have ruled India for over 800 years, and that was proof enough for them Why should they show any documents? Let's listen in to AIMIM leader Asaduddin Owaisi's younger brother Akbaruddin Owaisi.
डरने या घबराने की जरूरत नहीं है, हमको परेशान होने की जरूरत नहीं है, हमको इनके बातों में आने की जरूरत नहीं है। अरे आज लोग जो पूछ रहे हैं कि मुसलमान के पास क्या है, मैं कहना चाहता हूं, तू मेरे कागज देखना चाहता है। अरे 800 बरस तक मैंने इस मुल्क पे हुक्मरानी और जाबाजी की है। ये मुल्क मेरा था, मेरा है, मेरा।
So effectively, Dr. Ambedkar, I think, doesn't mince words in making the statement that if these two people who have such very different notions of a nation, very different notions of the past, very different notions of the present, and very different notions of the future, if they live under the same roof, it is bound to lead to frequent bloodletting. It is bound to lead to frequent, let's say, civil wars, and that seems to be his prognosis. So I asked myself, assume for a moment if I were to present this point of view as an independent point of view, perhaps in a JNU or a Jamia or an Aligarh Muslim University or elsewhere, there's a decent chance that I may be branded a bigot or a fundamentalist. But why is it that these opinions of Dr. Ambedkar are not pointed out enough? Why is it that they are not showcased enough? Why is it that some people seem to be so uncomfortable when these points of view of Dr. Ambedkar are presented to them, or they're confronted with these ideas of Dr. Ambedkar? Then what does it do to the so-called Dalit Muslim unity is something that I'd certainly like to understand. Because the one thing that Dr. Ambedkar is very, very clear about in his ideas about the concept of Pakistan is that Pakistan as a state will never be able to do justice to the Dalits in Hindus. And he was very, very clear about the fact that the Dalits will be among the first people to be affected as a consequence of the two-nation theory if India were not to protect them, for the simple reason that in the point of view of, let's say, the Pakistani mindset, the Dalit Hindu is perhaps the lowest common denominator, and therefore he must be converted under any circumstances. And if he does not convert, he does not have a right to live. In fact, I think out of the three categories of Muslims that they have as part of their definition, one is the Arab Muslim. The other is the convert to Islam from the so-called Savarnas of the Hindu community. The third is the convert from the SC, STs and the OBCs of the Hindu community to Islam. And that particular category or strata of the Muslim community, according to him, does not deserve the same level of respect, or does not get the same level of respect as the Arab Muslim. So these are his readings of how, let's say, there is a caste structure or a hierarchical structure within the idea of Pakistan itself. I'm not saying that he is entirely right or he is entirely wrong. But the one thing that must be drawn from his approach is the fearlessness in his speech, the fearlessness in his examination of facts, his political incorrectness, and his tendency to call a spade, because he had the exact opposite in Mr. Gandhi, who was willing to compromise on logic, facts, reason, and whatnot under the sun, and political realities and social realities and religious realities, all under the altar of what we know as Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam and God knows what not, Sarvadharma Sambhava and all that. Okay? You cannot have peace or brotherhood or harmony at the expense of the truth. You will need to speak the truth, you will need to confront it, and you will need to deal with it, and you'll have to find ways of addressing it, as opposed to behaving like an ostrich with your head buried in the sand.
And on the other hand, AIMIM chief Asaduddin Owaisi's open threats to cops at a rally in Kanpur now has created quite a political storm. The AIMIM chief Asaduddin Owaisi said that Yogi and Modi will not rule forever. They no more will be, one day they will no more be Chief Minister and Prime Minister respectively. And then what will happen to the police in UP? That's what he says at an event. He says while the leaders will not rule any longer, cops will have to watch out for themselves. They will be destroyed.
मैं तो उन पुलिस के लोगों से कहना चाह रहा हूं, याद रखो मेरी इस बात को, हमेशा योगी मुख्यमंत्री नहीं रहेगा, हमेशा मोदी प्रधानमंत्री नहीं रहेगा, और हम मुसलमान वक्त के एतबार से खामोश जरूर हैं, मगर याद रखो हम तुम्हारे जुल्म को भूलने वाले नहीं हैं, हम तुम्हारे जुल्म को याद रखेंगे। अल्लाह अपनी ताकत के जरिए तुमको निस्तो नाबूद करेगा इंशाअल्लाह ताला, और हम याद रखेंगे हालात बदलेंगे। जब कौन बचाने आएगा तुमको, जब कौन आएगा, हम नहीं भूलेंगे, याद रखो।
It was his own fanaticism and bigotry which was put on stark display. So effectively you see that there are any number of heroes worshipped by this particular cross-section of people who subscribe to the idea of Pakistan, which pits them at loggerheads with the Hindu society. Okay, so to understand what is the basis of this entire idea, why did someone feel the need to secede from India and to create a separate country? What was the problem in living in a Hindu majority India? These are certain uncomfortable but certainly relevant questions that need to be asked and answered.